Do you mind sharing some of those insights or lessons or teachings that you learned from the horse?
He taught me that I wasn't alone, that there was some larger force at work surrounding me, holding me up. And he was just there to tell me it was all going to be okay and to stay here, stay in this moment. There's beauty right here. You're here, you're living on this farm, you're living in this really cool house on this beautiful property. And there's a lot to be thankful for right here, right now. And this is your moment to slow your life down. So let this moment slow your life down. Let it slow you down. Be here with me. I'm a horse. I'm hanging out. Like I can't go anywhere either, and it's pretty good. And he just showed me how to see the beauty that was all around me.
Mm.
He also taught me something about strength too. There was a stoicism to that animal. He was just very strong and very his presence was very powerful.
Mm.
And I think he gave me that strength too.
Mm. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love horses. Never own one or be around one long enough other than just horse riding experiences. But
Mhm.
whenever I'm near horses, I really appreciate, just as you said, the magnificent beast that they are. So
Mhm.
could you share with us a little bit about, were you already on the spiritual path? Did you believe there's something greater than the soul, the spirit? Or was it something that more of an intuition that there's something bigger
Mhm.
during your dark moments?
Yes, I had absolutely been on the spiritual path for most of my adult life. Raised in a traditional Roman Catholic family, I went to Catholic school from first through 12th grade. None of that really resonated with me. However, I do think it created an amazing foundation to my spiritual formation. And then around late high school, early college years, I started exploring on my own. I'd say that my exploration took me first towards the Christian mystics. So I still related to that Christian narrative, the Judeo Christian narrative, but a lot of the spiritual thinkers that I began reading and following were more of the came more out of the mystical tradition where it was more about prayer and contemplation and meditation. Like I mentioned, Thomas Merton and Henry Nouwen, Brendan Manning, Meister Eckhart. Some of these thinkers really began to shape my worldview, which helped open my eyes to other religious or spiritual traditions, Buddhism and all forms of spirituality. So I had this really strong spiritual foundation. I've been deeply connected to the Quaker tradition because of where I live here in Pennsylvania. There's a pretty big Quaker influence, and the Quakers, if you don't know much about them, are pretty. I pretty much call them the Christian Buddhists.
Oh,
They have this reputation of being very backward and antiquated, but
mm,
they're actually probably the most progressive Christian minds. Their form of worship is that you meet in community without clergy, without any paid clergy. You
mm,
sit in silence as a group, as a community, you sit in silence for about an hour. And
mm,
then as you feel led, you can stand and share a teaching or a revelation. It's a
mm.
beautiful experience. Anyone can feel welcome going to a Quaker, they call it a Quaker meeting. So I had that sort of in my background, but I would say that this sort of dark night of the soul caused me to question everything. And I was definitely drawing a lot on God, spirit, the Christ consciousness story, like all of these sort of ideas. I was so desperate that I was praying to all beings. I was like very broadly crying out to for help. And there was so many moments along that sort of dark night where I did feel the presence of a higher power that
Mm.
was guiding me through it all.
Thank you so much for sharing in very deep and intimate moments. And
Mhm.
it's so relatable. It's so necessary. And that's why I want to normalize people sharing their dark moments a little bit more publicly because who knows? By the way, when people do share their dark moments, a lot of times we hear back, hey, I was actually thinking about doing the unthinkable, but thanks to the story.
Yeah.
So,
I'll share one more detail. There was one day in particular. So Lyme disease, it usually when it becomes chronic. So Lyme disease is totally healable if you catch it within the first couple weeks. If you get bit by a tick and you see a bullseye, and then you go to the doctor, and the doctor gives you antibiotics, about
sorry,
95%.
bullseye, you lost me on that. What's bull?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're from California. This isn't. So here on the East Coast, there's a lot of ticks.
Mhm.
Lyme disease is very common, specifically in the Northeast, although there are now confirmed cases in all 50 states.
Mhm.
But normally, what happens is you get bit, usually by a tick, could be a spider, but there's other insects that carry the Lyme bacteria. And so you get bit and you end up with this rash. And the rash is normally like a circle and it looks like a bullseye. So that's like a classic telltale, okay, that this person has Lyme disease. Then
Mm.
then you go to the doctor and you get tested, and then the testing is it's a little inaccurate. And so a lot of times people don't know if they really have it. So the doctor just gives them a 2 week cycle of antibiotics. And that's usually enough to just knock it out. In my case, I never found a bullseye. I never saw a tick on me. And I fell mysteriously ill. 7 months later, my doctor confirms, oh, it was Lyme disease. At that point, there's no antibiotic that's going to work. What happens, because I wasn't treated right away, the first few months, it started affecting me neurologically. So it's very common that the Lyme disease attacks the brain
Mm.
and it causes panic, it causes anxiety, it causes the inability to sleep, like insomnia. And there was a day in particular where I was feeling so terrible. And my wife was like, let's get you out of the house. Let's just go for a ride in the car. And I remember I was having some of the most irrational thoughts that I never thought my brain was capable of having such irrational thoughts, but they were certainly suicidal.
Mm.
And I was thinking to myself, okay, maybe I should just ask my wife to drop me off at the hospital and leave me, just lock me up for a while, just take me somewhere. And I never spoke those words, but I was so close to just asking her. That's how dark it got.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't pull myself out of it.